right, guys, I have 6 o'clock, so please silence all your devices and let's get ready to get started, please. So at 6 o'clock, I call this meeting of Saginaw City Council order. Please rise for the pledges. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag.
I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible. Thank you. Please be seated. He just told me. And for item 2, invocation, we do have a minor substitution, but Amanda Towns is here, so please join us for invocation. Thank you for coming.
Father, we thank you for the opportunity to come before you tonight, and I ask for wisdom for these city officials as they make decisions and hear the desires of their community and try their very best to honor those considerations. And I just ask that you would give them wisdom as they do so. We thank you for their service. We know it's a sacrifice of time and of efforts, and they want to do the very best they can for this city, and we're so grateful for them. So we ask that you honor them, and we ask that you honor our community and continue your blessings. In Jesus' name I ask these things. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you, ma'am.
All right, item 3 is audit participation. If there's an item you wish to speak upon, please see the city secretary and fill out a form. Unless it is a public hearing, we have 3 public hearings tonight. You do not need to fill out a form for those. When I call for speakers, you may approach the podium. So that's items 9, 10, and 11. You don't need to fill out a form for those. We encourage any and all input on those. Item 4, consent agenda. I've had a request to pull item C and item D. So we will initially look at item A, action regarding minutes of January 3rd. B, action regarding approval for Weaver and Tittle to perform fiscal year audit for 2022-23. E, action regarding Eagle Mountain Saginaw ISD memo of understanding with access for the police. Any question on items A, B, and E? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I make a motion that we approve A, B, and E of the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
Mr. Tucker, second. Please cast your votes.
Sorry.
Nick, did you cast your vote?
Oh, I'm sorry. Did you read it?
There you go.
This 1 week and it's out.
Thank you, folks. Let the record reflect we do have a quorum. We have a full house tonight. Thanks for joining us, folks. Let's go to item C, action regarding proposal for professional services from Roof Technical Services, Inc., for professional engineering and consulting for the police department. For that, Lee House, city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Chief Ragsdale has the most up-to-date information on this item.
Mr. Mayor and Council, thank you for considering this option here. So what we have before you is a proposal for professional services for the roof replacement there at the police department. And we came to you back during the budgetary process. Roof leaks, been doing that for a couple of years, some minor patches here and there, but we're just getting to a point that even the patches aren't holding. This project is quite large and quite expensive. I think we budgeted $275,000 for the roof repair. And it's well beyond my level of expertise. So what we've asked for is professional services to help build that specification so we can find the contractors who will do this job correctly. The roof replacement is actually funded through ARPA funds. It's a grant fund project, so we want to make sure that we do this right and don't mess it up. And see, no one in the police department has the expertise in which to provide the guidance for that.
Council questions for Chief?
I had a couple of questions, but you answered them, so thank you.
Any other questions for Chief Ragsdale? All right, I'll entertain a motion for C, please.
Mayor, I move that we approve agenda item 4C as it stands.
Do I have a second? Mary? No. Please cast your votes. Thank you. Motion passes. Item D, action regarding contract for Independence Day fireworks. For that, Pedro Zambrano, Communications Manager. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Good evening. So this is the contract to contract Texas Pro Show for the July, well, the event's going to be July 1st, but it's going to be July 4th Independence Day celebration. The fireworks is the same company we used last year. We contracted with them for a 15-minute show. The show actually lasted about 28. So this is what the contract is for. I have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Council questions for Pedro?
I have a couple of questions. I understand that the cost of these fireworks displays have gone up considerably. Do you remember what we paid last year?
Last year we paid roughly $17,350, I believe. It's $17,000. It has increased due to the fact that supply chain, also the ports that accept explosives from China have been dwindled down to only 2, Long Beach and Charlton, I believe. So that's why the price has increased.
Okay. And I also noticed in the contract that there was no rain date specified.
We do not have one currently in now. We could definitely speak with them about potentially doing one, but I think that could be something we could talk about with the Parks Board.
Okay, so is that something we can add later without having to revise
I could
the
reach out
contract?
to them and ask.
Okay. And then I also noticed in the contract it talked about the city providing security, and I presume that we're going to reach out to CPAA and CERT for that?
Do you mean security around the perimeter of the
Around
fireworks?
the perimeter of the...
I believe that's already, I don't know if that's already sort of provided because they're away from the area. I think, Chief, do we have some kind of safety mechanism there? Because I think that's more of a fire marshal question.
Safety mechanism for the overall fireworks show? Sorry, I missed your question.
It was just the contract talked about security around the perimeter.
Yes, we do. We've been providing that, and we'll continue to
And we
provide.
provide that, but I was asking if certain CPAA were going to be involved in that.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
They've been involved in the past fireworks shows. There's no reason to change that. But that's not our plan to change it.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Any other questions for Pedro? No. Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
I'll entertain a motion for item 4D.
Mayor, I make a motion that we approve item D on the agenda today.
Okay. No second? Tucker, please cast your votes. Motion passes. Thank y'all, folks. Item 5, Chief Ragsdale has introduced his newest employee. Probably most popular as well.
I believe he is the most popular. So, Mr. Mayor and Council, we came to you last year seeking a K-9 program. We've got that program started. You've met Corporal Manning in the past. So Corporal Manning is a little over 4-year officer with us. He's a member of our SWAT team. He has been selected as our first K-9 handler. He's completed his training with his new partner in California. So I'd like to ask Corporal Manning and Six to come in, and I'll let him actually introduce the K-9 partner to you.
He's working.
He's working, that's right.
So I think I was here, 4 months ago? And that word I couldn't remember, continuous improvement. That's the word I was looking for back then. So I wanted to bring that and let y'all know that was continuous improvement. So this is Six. He's a Dutch Shepherd. He's about 2 years old. Right at, I think he just turned 2 last week. Let's see. He has received 120 hours of narcotics detection training. He's received 200 hours of patrol dog training. And he really enjoys to play fetch. He likes a Kong. I'm not sure if y'all are familiar with those little, it's kind of like a rubber ball, but not really. But he really loves those. In fact, it kind of drives him a little crazy. Trying to think about anything else that's interesting about him. I don't know. He's a cool dog. I like him. Thank you guys for allowing us to do this. Like I said, I think it's still going to be something that's beneficiary to the police department and obviously the citizens of Saginaw. So thank y'all. I appreciate it. Do y'all have any questions for me?
Yeah, any questions for?
Easy ones?
Easy ones.
We might have questions for
He's a
Six,
pretty
but I'm sure
dog.
you can be the spokesman.
Very nice.
I'm a spokesman, yeah. I'll talk for him. Nothing?
Can you bring him around on this side so
Sure.
we can see him because
Yeah,
he's hiding
you got to
behind
meet him
the...
at the community center, didn't you?
I did, but I don't think Mary's met him.
He wants to go to work.
Yeah.
Oh. Well, welcome aboard.
Hey, do we need any pictures or anything? What do you want to do?
Good looking dog. Oh, I have a question. I just have a question. Has he met Sheldon yet? No. Will they ever meet each other?
He doesn't go around with other dogs much.
Oh, really?
He's friendly, but he's a hard player.
Oh.
He's rough.
Aw.
Thank y'all again. Thank you.
Very pretty dog.
Hey, Corporal. Great work.
Yes.
And to answer your question, I mean, every fireman needs a hero. That's why they depend on us. This would be Sheldon's hero right here. So we don't want to cause too many controversies with it.
I'm going to miss seeing Sheldon running around the block when they move over here. Mm-hmm. Okay, good.
All right, thanks, folks. Thanks, Chief. Item number 6, presentation of Texas Coalition for Portable Power, TCAP Founding Member Award. Margaret, welcome. Thanks for coming to Saginaw.
You know, I was just telling Janice, I had actually never been to Saginaw before, like by it, through it, just never been. So I'm very excited to be here. Mayor, City Council, thank you so much for giving me a few moments tonight of your time to talk about TCAP. First and foremost, what I wanted to do, I want to just put that right there and tell you a little bit about it. What we've been doing, we started in actually 2021, but you know, it's kind of been crazy. And we have been thanking our founding members, those members that have been with us since the very beginning. TCAP was actually started in 2001, and we were written into the deregulation law in Austin, which would allow cities to aggregate together, to come together to buy electricity. Saginaw passed a resolution back in 2001 and joined a group, at the time it was called the Cities Aggregation Power Project. That was the first group. And then in 2011, it merged with a group called the South Texas Aggregation Project, and then we became the Texas Coalition for Affordable Power. The same purpose, finding our members' savings. We're nonprofit, so we're not looking to make a profit off any city. We're trying to find you as much savings as possible so that you're saving taxpayer dollars and not spending it on electricity bills. We have 164 members. Of those 164, 86 of them are founding members, like the City of Saginaw. And we wanted to thank our members with something little, and something that you can show off with pride, that you helped form this group and that you've been a leader for the last, going on 22 years now. So I wanted to bring that by. I also brought some packets of information. I'm not going to go over it. There's lots of booklets in here that you can read at your leisure. It talks about how to buy electricity, why why TCAP is the best, why we do things differently. I'm sure your city staff probably gets phone calls from every one of our competitors trying to explain that they do it better. And so this kind of gives you more details on why we're different. Again, we're cities. We're political subdivisions that come together. The other thing that makes us different, and I won't take up too much more of your time, but cities are, as you know, a unique entity. You're considered a commercial customer in the electric market, but you're not a commercial business. And what makes cities unique and what makes our buying power so good is that cities tend to use a lot of power in overnight hours. Street lights, pumping, for our larger cities, water treatment. A lot of that goes on overnight. Because it goes on overnight, we're able to buy electricity overnight when people aren't using it. So commercial businesses, typically 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, when everybody else is using power. And when we come together, we're going out. Another thing that makes us different, we go out into the wholesale market. We do not have to go into the retail market, again, because of the way we were set up in the legislation. And we go out with about 1 billion kilowatts. So that really gives you buying power that no one city can get on their own. So again, there's a lot of information in here that you can read at your leisure. And again, just wanted to come out and thank you all for being a member. And I'm here to answer any other questions you may have.
You know, it was it was neat. I didn't realize what we're getting into, but we met Margaret at TML, Texas Municipal League. I'd heard about TCAP. I didn't know that much about it, I'm ashamed to say. But she was glad to educate several of us, and I wanted her to come here and talk about it in front of the main council, because I know a lot of people like me hadn't heard about it very much. I knew we were part of it, but I didn't know how it worked. So thank you so much. It was great. We got to meet you at TML. That's one of the great things about TML, is to meet folks like you and understand what we do. And thank you so much. It's cool. I appreciate your partnership, and this is a great program. We're proud to be a part of it.
So we are in the planning stages. We just had a board meeting Friday. And we're looking at rolling out monthly webinars so that you can join on, whatever month you can. And it's going to talk about what's going on in the energy market. We're going to do legislative updates. We're also going to do some just things that are as simple as, I need to add and delete meters from my account, or, just kind of understanding that process and what you need to do, going through Encore as well. So be on the lookout. We're going to send that information out soon. So we're excited about that.
Any questions, Council? Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome. I will. How about I just give all this to Janice?
That's a great idea. I am not to be trusted with that kind of thing. All right, thank you. Item number 7, presentation of annual comprehensive financial report for year-end September 2022. Kim Quinn, Finance Director.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. We go right from adopting the budget to then looking backwards and finishing up the year and getting ready for the audit, which starts around Thanksgiving every year. And so this is the last stage of that. We've completed the report, and Jennifer Ripka from Weaver is here to make a brief presentation to y'all. And we do have the printed copies for y'all, and we just finalized the digital version that will be posted to the website.
All right. Well, thank you, Mayor and council members. Again, my name is Jennifer Ripka, and I'm the partner on the engagement. I'm going to briefly go through the audit. It really is kind of a 3-step process. We start with our interim field work during the end of summer. That's where we do the planning and go through our risk assessment. During that risk assessment process is where we're looking at the control system of the city. And during that control review, we also do actual control testing. So we're looking at the significant transaction cycles for the city, which is going to be cash disbursements, cash receipts, and then the treasury cycle, financial close, P-card process. When we're going through and determining which areas we want to actually do control testing of, again, we're looking at those significant transaction cycles, and then we're going to pull a sample of the items that we're testing. And so a sample of cash disbursements, a sample of the P-cards, a sample of cash receipts to ensure that those controls that are noted within the narrative are actually operating as designed. And so if there were any breakdowns in the control, we would bring that to y'all's attention, because this audit is performed in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards as well as generally accepted government auditing standards. So it's a little bit different from a commercial client where you're not required to test internal controls. At a government, you are required to test internal controls. So that's the first piece of the audit. Then we take it a step further where we're actually testing the balances that are within this lovely document that you all will spend some time reviewing. During that review, we're all trying to get to a point where we can actually issue an opinion on the financial statements. And so the opinion starts on page 3. That's the independent auditor's report. These few pages are really the only pages that I'm responsible for as part of, as the external auditor. The rest of the pages are the responsibility of the city and management. This layout of this report is a little bit different from prior years. We did implement SAS 134 this year, which requires the opinion to be at the forefront. It's the very first paragraph. We've issued an unmodified opinion. That's a clean opinion. It's the highest level of assurance that can be placed on a set of financial statements. So that's the most important piece from an opinion standpoint. The other piece I do want to point out is there is an emphasis of matter paragraph that's located in here. It's a few paragraphs down. And that just discusses that in addition to the auditing standards that we implemented this year, we were required to also implement GASB 87, the lease standards. And it did not change net position. Some of the other GASBs that we've implemented over the years, it has gone back and restated prior year net position. With this one, it was not a prior year restatement, but going forward, we have implemented this GASB statement. And so when the city enters into any type of lease, we have to go through the process of determining whether or not it should be recorded as a right to use asset, as well as a liability if you all are the lessee. If you are a lessor, then whether or not it needs to be included as a lease receivable and then a deferred inflow. So as far as changes, that's the only real change from the prior year. Again, the results were great. I do want to thank Kim because, she spends a considerable amount of her time outside of her actual job performing a lot of the work that gets us ready for the audit. And so I thank her. And I'll open it up for any questions that you all may have.
Council, any questions for Jennifer? All right, so I got a couple. So from a general public perspective, can you explain what this really means to the general public, non-accounting general public?
I'll try. I guess from a non-accounting standpoint, we're coming in to review the balances that are, located in here. So cash coming into the city, cash going out, and how that's represented in the financial statements. We do not test 100% of the transactions that do occur. So that is something to note. We are looking at it from a materiality standpoint. Those materiality numbers do change each and every year, and that's so the client does not get comfortable with those amounts. And when we're testing, we're looking at it from an unpredictability standpoint as well. And so while I might say that something should be tested at a certain level, we can also, and we do, dive below that level to pull items to ensure that they're being recognized properly. So I don't know that I'm great at explaining how audit works just because I do it all the time, but we're looking at to ensure that the controls, so if somebody says they're supposed to be reviewing something, we're looking to see if they're reviewing it. If somebody said that cash came into the city, and it's being recorded as cash, we're looking to see if it's being recorded as cash. So, a lot goes into this book, but
sure.
That's probably the best I've got.
Mary, you have a question, please? Well, I was going to say, if I'm a citizen out there, I'm thinking, is the city being good stewards of my money? Are they spending it the way they're saying they're spending it? We're spending their money. Hey, we are. We're spending money, but we try to be transparent. So are we still, you can say yes, or I hope this says yes, the city is spending the money, it's coming in, coming out the way they say it is, as transparent as we can be, as you said, a lot of details.
Right. Yes. So as far as the audit is concerned, you all are spending the money as you've deemed that you're going to spend it, and part of that is looking to ensure that council has approved XYZ contracts. We're looking to see if that's being spent in accordance with the contracts. So a lot of these items that are on consent agenda that you all pass, and you say you're going to spend $17,000 on X, we're going to go back to look and see if that's being spent. Yeah.
Councilmember Copeland.
This question just occurred to me, and I'm just curious.
Yeah.
Would this type of audit ever uncover some things that we see in the news and we've seen recently about city employees misusing funds?
Yeah, so an audit is really not designed to uncover fraud. So if you're, while we are looking for that, we are performing a risk-based audit, and we're looking at it from a fraud as well as an error standpoint. The likelihood that an auditor is going to find fraud is very low. Most of the things that you see on the news are uncovered by an internal audit department because they're auditing at your city throughout the fiscal year. It's a little bit different from us. We start in November and then we finish up. And then the other side of that is really employees. Employees coming, to council and saying there's been a misuse. That's really the majority of fraud that you find out there. Not to say I wouldn't find it, but that's really not what an audit is designed for. An external audit. Internal audit is.
Comment, Mr. Lawson.
So I'm definitely not, this is not in my wheelhouse, this type of audit, but I am very familiar with audits, and other audits I've seen done or participated in, they will have at the end like best practices or opportunities for improvement.
Yeah.
And it's usually broken down into 4, and then they'll have like minor findings and major findings.
Right.
I was looking in the bag and I don't see anything like that.
Yeah.
Does this break it down like that, or?
Yeah, so an external audit that doesn't have a single audit attached to it, does not have like a report, what I would consider to be a report card at the very back. In terms of a risk advisory type of audit, which we do have a department that does that, those would go through operational type items, and they would discuss here's our findings, this is what you should implement, etc. I would only bring that to this group if it's risen to the level of material misstatement. So you all do not have any audit adjustments that we've had to, bring to Kim for her to actually change the books. We also didn't note anything during our control review that would rise to a level where we felt like you all would have a significant deficiency or a material weakness. That piece would be brought to you all. If there is none, then we don't have that. That's not to say that we don't have suggestions during an audit. If it's below that significant deficiency level, then we would just discuss it with management. And that's just to mean that there is the control environment as a whole would be able to find fraud or detect it or prevent it.
Okay.
If we can't find that, then we would bring it to y'all's attention.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions, council? Jennifer, thank you. We appreciate your efforts.
Yeah, thank you.
Good working with you. And thank you, Kim, as well. I know Kim put a lot of effort into this. Thank you. You and Jennifer.
It's a team effort, Mayor. All of the managers in this room help make it happen, and all of the finance department.
Great. Awesome. Item number 8, consideration action regarding ordinance number 2023-5, appointment of municipal court judge, assistant judges, and approval of municipal court judge agreement. Back to Kim Quinn.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. You, as a council, appoint the municipal court judge. Judge Irby has been the judge since we've been a court of record since 2012. And this is just the standard contract that you've approved in the past. The only changes are the dates, and there was an increase in compensation. This is the first increase since 2012. Judge Irby's here to answer any questions.
Welcome, Judge Irby.
Good evening.
Good to have you here.
How are you all?
Do you have a presentation, or you want to say anything, or what?
I figured I'd open it to questions this year. You guys usually have great questions for me.
Okay. Questions for Judge?
Do you want to hear a day in the life, or did you guys hear it last year when I did this?
Let's do a day in the life. We probably forgot.
So typically we have court here in the building 2 Thursdays a month. They usually run all day. One is just our plea dockets and our, catching up with the show cause and the bond dockets and everything. The other one is our pre-trial docket, where our prosecutor's here talking to people who have pled not guilty. Both of those are in anticipation of trial settings, which we have 4 times a year. We have jury trials, twice a year and bench trials twice a year. So when we have court, I'm here. When we're having the prosecutor docket, we have changed it over the years, and the prosecutor is in here meeting with people. I sit in the mayor's office and wait until they need me for things. So do indigency hearings, do whatever. On the other side of the page, when people have been arrested and are in jail, I will read reports and find probable cause, or if I don't find probable cause, I'll work with the police department to determine what extra information I might need in order to find probable cause. We have people that have warrants, so I might go see them in jail or do personal bonds. Most everybody that has your basic arrest warrant for tickets in Saginaw is released on a personal bond immediately. As soon as we know that there's no further charges pending, I want them out and give them the chance to come up here and see me without having to pull money out of their pocket. I also do warrants, so that would be blood warrants in the middle of the night, or here lately a whole lot in the middle of the afternoon. I'm having blood warrants, which I find very fascinating. That would be somebody who was arrested for DWI and does not want to consent to a specimen of breath or blood. We also do arrest warrants and search warrants, and I like to thank COVID for a lot of things, but the biggest thing is how digital we've become. So we have the ability now to do everything electronically. They don't have to drive out to my house for a search warrant at 2 a.m. We've gotten it all perfected where they can just call me, and we've got a process in place to do those electronically, do the blood warrants. The only thing they have to see me for is arrest warrants. And those I would typically go to the police station to sign unless we need to meet somewhere else to sign them. We have animal control hearings. I believe one of you came and saw court one day. I would encourage you, if you're ever interested in what happens in court. I thought it was you. We have one day where I start at 9 o'clock and we go till 5 o'clock, and that's usually the third Thursday, and we have a different docket every hour. So, no. He sat over here and got to ask me questions. So we cram it all into one day so we don't have to disturb the front staff as much throughout the month. So there's other little things. I didn't really prepare a presentation. I figured you guys just might want to play question and answer with me. Yes, ma'am.
I'm not knowledgeable at all, but so if somebody comes before you, is it because of something that occurred in Saginaw and not necessarily a person that lives here, or is it the other way around?
It would be something that occurs in Saginaw. It would be a Class C misdemeanor, like a speeding ticket or a stop sign violation, and it would be within the territorial limits of Saginaw.
Okay.
Other questions? No?
So basically, nothing really exciting happens in this court.
Oh, lots of exciting things happen
really?
in this court.
Wow.
Okay. No, but usually what we're having hearings for is your traffic tickets or your code enforcement dockets. A few times a year, we do have a dangerous dog or a cruelly treated animal hearing or something. We do property hearings. I think it's really cool. But for a lot of people, they think it all should be like on Perry Mason. We don't have a whole lot of Perry Mason moments, not even in our trials. But I definitely encourage you, if you ever want to see a good trial, come to see trials here. They're pretty great. They're usually, we have them 4 times a year, and they're usually on Mondays. So you can check with our clerk and find out when we have them.
How many cases do you see a day normally?
So on my Thursday docket, that's when I do everything. So by comparison, in Haltom City, I have court twice a week, usually morning and afternoon. But it's specific dockets, so it might be an hour, hour and a half. Instead of doing that here, we do everything in one day. So in that one day, I might see anywhere between 300 and 500 people. We have a whole docket for people that have gotten tickets and just forgot about them. So we have to send them out letters and say, oops, you forgot your ticket. Please come see me. And most of them don't show up. So, but we don't issue warrants until we've sent out that letter. So that's why the docket gets...
This room is full.
We fill it up every hour, and then we process them and talk to them and try to be, real good with, I'm real big on indigency and trying to come up with alternative forms of resolving their stuff so that they're not sitting there sweating. Bills have gotten real expensive right now, so I don't want anybody leaving here thinking I'm going to send them to the poorhouse.
Well, maybe 6 is going to help her out and get some more.
Yeah. I know. I did a web search to see, because, somebody's going to complain about somebody.
Right.
out there, right? And I'll have to say, none of y'all was there. Well, there was only one complaint out of everything, and it was they complained about you not wearing a wig.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'll get one of those.
Seriously?
Dead serious. Said, yeah, they couldn't believe that, and they said that they were actually
year
going to
is
take
this?
their courting elsewhere. So, but no, I was pretty amazed at the whole evening. And as long as you've done this, nothing.
I can't make everybody happy. I try to make everybody leave here thinking they've gotten a just meeting with me.
Yeah. So, is there anything we as a council can do to help speed the process, or to help as as our citizens or other people come in here? Is there something we could do to?
I don't know. I always open it up for people to come in and watch and not be scared. I think that's the biggest thing, is a lot of people are just scared. I've had amnesty for warrants for years. People can just come in for most warrants and without even putting money down, get the warrants lifted and get on a payment plan. People don't know. Now, that's not for all warrants, but people just don't know. I'll hear that all the time. I didn't know I could do that. So if you wanted to tell your friends, hey, if you've got warrants in Saginaw and Haltom, no money down if they're just plain old arrest warrants. They can just come up and set up a payment plan. That would help.
Can we publicize that?
So I don't know. I've asked about doing like a website thing, and but I run my mouth about it every chance I get. But people are scared.
Right.
So.
Sure. How many outstanding small? I guess I don't know what you call them. Small warrants, I guess. Do we have currently right now?
I don't know. I know that docket that we have that is people that have never come to do anything with their warrants. Yeah. That's a pretty biggie. Yeah. So, I mean, it's not massive. There's not like a ton of tickets. It's just a lot of people don't show.
Yeah.
They just forget it in their bag.
Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and along those lines, when I was talking this afternoon, I was thinking about that, about the judge and our court. I've been on council a long time, way too long. I've been mayor for 6 years. I've never got a complaint about the court, ever. And that's a pretty contentious topic. So I'm surprised. After I racked my brains and was thinking about it, and I talked to some folks, I cannot recall a complaint, which is amazing. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for making our job a little easier and doing yours so well.
Before I walk away, anybody else have anything? Anything? All right. Come see me sometime. Thank you.
All right, so there is an action on this, I believe?
Yes, there's an ordinance that's approved, that needs to be approved, and then the municipal judge agreement. May I also say, in addition to Judge Irby doing a wonderful job with the complainants, we have front office staff that works really hard to try to let everybody understand what their tickets are, what their options are. And so we try to resolve those issues before it even gets to court. And we have a really great group of people working in the finance department that really go over and above. And it's true. It's a real, nobody's happy when they come in and they've got a ticket. So it takes really good customer service and customer care to explain their options in a positive way. And give them all of those options. So I'm really proud of the work that we do in that regard.
I will say, from a council standpoint, it was well worth about an hour I was here that day, that to sit out there and watch this take place. It was well worth the time I spent doing it.
Very nice. Thank you. All right, if no more questions, I will entertain a motion.
Mayor, I make a motion that we approve ordinance number 2023-5, appointment of municipal court judge and associate judges, and approval of municipal court judge agreement.
Wait till she finishes. Oh, wait till she finishes. All right. Charlie, second. All right. Please cast your votes. Motion passed. Thank you. Look forward to working with you some more.
Okay, before you do this one.
Yes, ma'am.
Bryn, do I need to recuse myself from the next two because they're right by the daycare? And I meant to ask Janice earlier.
Yes, anything within 200 feet of your daycare.
Okay.
It's within 200 feet?
Yeah.
Is it within 200? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I wasn't sure. Okay.
Well, I don't want to get in trouble, so I'd just rather recuse myself.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem will abstain or recuse herself from the next two.
Mm-hmm. Can I sit here or do I need to leave?
I would. Right.
Okay. Let me go.
Somebody remind me to go get Valerie when we're done. I always forget. All right, so at 6:40, we're in a public hearing. Consideration and action regarding a recommendation from Planning and Zoning Commission on a request for a specific use permit to allow expansion, construction, and operation of a mini warehouse located at 221 and 225 South Belmont. And I believe we're going to hear from the applicant himself, David Meehan. Welcome, sir.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for this. We appreciate it very much. What can I tell you? What would you like?
Tell us about what you have and what you're trying to do.
Well, there's an existing facility, mini storage facility is what it's known. They're very small units that Aaron Hultgren, who's the owner of the company, acquired a short time ago. The units themselves that are existing are in pretty bad shape, and so our intent is to fix those units up, to modernize them, change the doors, paint the buildings, plug the holes that are existing, and take care of the driveway that's going down through there, and make sure that it's not an eyesore any longer. In the meantime, we acquired the
How many
property.
units are there, sir?
There are 32 units.
32, okay, thank you.
Right. In the meantime, there's an adjacent piece of property. It's only 50 feet wide. So our thought was originally to use it for outdoor uncovered parking, but there was no feasible way to do that, especially for you to have access to the fire department, that is. So we decided that the best use of that property was to mimic what we already had, to create 32 new mini storage units, to make it a viable investment for us, and to match the existing units to the new units in color, siding, improvements, etc. So we thought about the neighborhood. There is a neighborhood, but it's across the street and it's fenced. So there's no real disadvantage to the existing neighborhood. There's a church across the street. And since most of the people will be coming to the storage facility during the weekdays, we didn't see any impact on the parking or the traffic for the church either. We also thought about the best use of that piece of property in relation to not only the existing mini storage facility, but what's right next door to us. So this little piece of dirt is sandwiched between a business that is a metal building, and they do storage. I have not investigated all of the things that they do there. So here we have the mini storage. Next door to that is State Farm. And then we have another storage facility. So who else would be able to go into this little narrow piece of property but our storage facility? We thought about Saginaw too, and we recognized that Saginaw is one of the highest growth areas in the DFW area. In fact, it's listed as part of the new projection of, I think, the DFW area in the next 10 years to be over 10 million people in population. And we recognize what you're going through here from an ongoing development. We truly do. So I had a few other notes. Let's see. I think I was speaking with Aaron briefly, and I'd like to ask him to address this particular issue. As we're considering other opportunities here in the city of Saginaw, I have a couple of potential clients I have not introduced Aaron to yet who would like to do some shopping centers in this area as well. And I know that would be advantageous for the city's tax rolls, as well as our mini storage would be advantageous, because right now it's just a bare piece of land. So Aaron, if you want to, this is Aaron Hultgren, who's the owner of Tango.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Appreciate your guys' time. Yeah, we want to be good stewards of the community, and we want to provide a service, right? As one of the things we think about when it comes to storage is housing affordability, right? Housing continues to go up in cost, and one of the ways that we want to help serve that is by providing storage. People can buy a little bit smaller house that doesn't create such a big price tag and so forth. So our goals are always helping create affordability in serving the community. So and we're always looking for other projects. And once we've entered a community, it's easier for us to see what those projects are, whether it's retail, whether it's other office buildings, so on and so forth. So we're excited to be in the community and get to learn and understand what you guys all need. Thank you.
And I have to say, I've done several projects with Aaron over the last several, and all of the projects are designed in that manner with care and consideration for the community in just the way that he mentioned, but also from an aesthetic point of view. Because right now, between us, it's just an eyesore out there right now. A significant number of the doors don't even work, and they're falling off the tracks, and you can't open them. It's just a train wreck, actually, out there. But in any case, the second reason I asked Aaron to come up was one of the considerations that was part of the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting was that they wanted us to put an office in the facility. And how many do we own?
3,000.
How many buildings?
12 different facilities.
12, and none of them have offices because it's self-storage. We plan on changing the gates, and there'll be code-operated gates to get in and push button to get back out again. I know my architect has been in contact with you, I believe, and we've got those details worked out. Ostensibly, there's no reason for us to have an office there, and basically it cost us about $25,000 to do that, let alone staff it. So one of our considerations, since we are looking at other opportunities here, would be to find office space in close proximity that we could establish an office presence there and operate this, but also operate all of our other facilities that we plan on looking at in the future. So I know I'm asking that, and I know my architect has explored that as a variance, but we'd ask that you consider our request to not put an office in the facility, let alone we lose rent besides the cost of a space. It'd take about 2 spaces is what it would take. Thank you. Anything?
Yes, council questions? Councilmember Copeland?
Have you done research to determine whether or not there is a market in that area for 32 more?
We always do, and specifically we have a person on staff in our offices before we ever buy a piece of property. We'll do a market analysis to find out the feasibility. It would make no sense for us to buy something that could never be occupied. And yes, we have done. Beth is the person who does that in our office, and it's a viable situation for us. Yes.
And Keith, I know that in the planning and zoning minutes, it was brought up that there didn't seem to be much of in reality, anything to go into that small piece of property. Do you concur with that?
I haven't seen the planning and zoning minutes, so I can't speak exactly what it said, but it's a pretty narrow property, and for example, to get a quick serve or drive-through in there, I don't know that you could do that. It's pretty narrow.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. I'm easy to miss. No, I'm not. To answer that, the existing building has been there since 1983, so there really hasn't been any plausible uses for the adjacent property in any time. So if that building were to stay, it's technically legal non-conforming, so they have that use if they were to not make any extensions. So if they were planning not to recreate that, I don't really anticipate there being much plausibility for that parcel. And then just to touch base on that variance, that would be a totally separate item. As of now, it would be required. So the SUP itself today, if y'all choose to approve it, would be solely to allow the mini warehouse use for that. I hope that answers that.
Thank you, Susie. Yes. Council, other questions?
Well, let me clarify. I was not asking for the variance right now. I was just expressing our desire to not have an office.
Sure, understand. Councilmember Bighorse?
Is this going to be a single-story structure?
Yes.
Okay. Similar to what's already existing there?
It will duplicate what's there now, except for the
just better
aesthetics, right?
And, I'm sorry. And if I remember correctly, haven't we had problems with homeless people living in those buildings? Is that correct?
I don't know that I have any information to be able to answer your question with specifically to that.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I've toured the site myself and have not seen any evidence of homeless people occupying it. We're pretty familiar with that.
We do install lighting and have security cameras, and we monitor all of our facilities 24 hours a day. We have had facilities that have had that issue, but we work with great police departments to let them know when there is an issue, get in front of it, because we don't want those issues either. We want to be a good steward and help take care of those things. So.
Councilmember Flaggy.
Yes. Most of my questions have been answered, but one thing driving by there, I'd like to see, I don't know if you have it in your plans, some type of landscaping, some bushes or shrubs or something, just to make it a little more aesthetically nice.
Yes, that is part of our plan. That existing masonry wall that's quite an eyesore that's sitting out there right now, we're going to take that down and put in some plants and shrubs. That'll be part of our overall design when we come back and submit the plans.
The other question I have, when you update what you have now and you build new, is it going to be pretty similar looking, or?
Be identical. Well, the old one will be identical to the new. Let me put it that way.
That's all I got.
So Gabe, in this zoning change, part of the changes, he just said, take the wall down, put shrubs and stuff. Can that be tied into this zoning change to make sure that actually happens?
I defer to the city
That's a
attorney.
Bryn question, yeah.
You can include any reasonable conditions that you'd like in your motion. So, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Chief mentioned that there are pre-existing landscape requirements that are already in place. So any condition that you make would be to supplement that.
Do we know what those preconditioned landscape?
No, not but something.
Something.
Yeah.
They have to have so much shrubs and greenery for every place in that. There are
Okay.
Councilmember Copeland.
Right, just to build on that, there's certain percentages in the ordinance, how much space you're occupying, and a certain percentage has to be.
Right.
Certain types of landscaping, which I'm sure you realize.
We understand that completely. Yes, we do.
And the other question I had was, were there did any residents complain? There were no complaints, having been notified if they were within the right area.
We received no reply forms or calls for this.
Okay.
Councilmember Tucker.
Are any of those units in the existing units that are there, are they being used? 4 of them are?
Very, very poorly managed.
Yeah.
As I mentioned, at least 6 of the doors you can't even operate. They're falling off the tracks. I mean, the place is in
Disrepair?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's one of our goals, is to fix that.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons I would support this, is because of that, getting that existing one up to code, up to looking nicer, eyesore. Functional usage would be great. And I do agree that I've seen it, that parcel next door is very small. I was racking my brains as to what could go there besides this, and there's not many options. So this is probably the best use of the current land today, as it sits. And I like it. You're going to get them up to speed. You can get them both look at the same. It'll look nice. I think it's a positive. So I appreciate y'all bringing this to us and going through the efforts and spending the money to do this. We're all about, we talk about bringing new developments in, but we also like to renew our existing developments. And this is one of those that's there, and I'm happy that we're going to do that. I think that's a big positive for the city. So,
Good.
Other questions, council?
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
All right. And so it is a public hearing, so anyone in the audience who wishes to speak on this item, now is the time. It is open to anyone to speak on this item right now. Seeing nothing at 6:54, I take us out of public hearing, and I will entertain a motion.
Make a motion that we approve zoning ordinance number 2023-01 and 2023-04, and to follow the already established landscaping ordinance.
Okay. Have a second? Councilmember Big Horse? Cast your votes. Motion passes. Gentlemen, good luck.
Thank you.
We're rooting for you. Make us proud.
Thank you very much.
All right, moving forward, item number 11, so at 6:55, we're back in a public hearing. Consideration action regarding recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission on amending the zone ordinance for the City of Saginaw regarding a change in zoning from city facility, CF, to planned development, PD, with restaurant and entertainment uses, approximately 2.5 acres out of Saginaw Block 4, Park Block 4, more commonly known as 400 South Saginaw Boulevard, and Saginaw Block 4, all less E25, more commonly known as 405 South Belmont Street, Saginaw, Texas. Ordinance number 2023-02. Susan, welcome back.
Mr. Mayor. So this is the old fire station parcel, 400 South Saginaw and 401 Belmont. It's currently zoned as a city facility, so the only uses would be for the city. Since we're evidently trying to sell it to local favorite, a rezoning would be required. So we're proposing a planned development specifically for this parcel to be rezoned to a project that would have restaurants that would be sit down, no drive-ins, no restaurants that would not be what we wanted. We would also strive to have live entertainment and also a plaza of some sort. So there is a development plan associated with this, which is that ordinance that you would vote on today. And so it is recommended that we can go ahead and proceed with the plan development so that local favorite can go ahead and start their process. So this is the first step in that process. Do y'all have any
questions for Susie?
Would you please explain what it means to when it says commonly known as 400 South Saginaw Boulevard and Saginaw Block 4 less E25?
That's just the parcel currently per TAD. So this one was, I think it dates back to the 1800s, the late 1800s. So they just had a different method back then of naming that parcel, but it's all Tarrant Appraisal District. So back then when they filed it, it would be according to that. And so we do the commonly known as, because that's what we know it as, but some of these we also use just Tarrant Appraisal District addresses.
So the E25 is nothing special here?
No, it's
just there to confuse us.
Yes, that's right. It worked.
Yeah, we usually don't see that today, so it was probably something that worked back then.
Other questions, Council? I'm excited. This first step, let's get going. I'm impatient. I'm ready. We're moving forward. I'm glad that we are taking the first step. That's all.
Yes,
Any other questions? All right, thank you, Susie.
Of course.
Again, we are in a public hearing, so this is open for comment from anyone from the public who wishes to approach. And yes, sir.
What about the Kiwanis Park? How would that be impacted?
Can you come up here and speak on this? I'm sorry, I was not able to hear you at home.
Yeah.
No. And introduce yourself too.
Sean Tubbs, I'm a citizen here in Saginaw.
You're also a scoutmaster, right?
I am the scoutmaster
very
of
important. Don't leave that out.
3, or Troop 3. How would that affect the Kiwanis Park there, the Veterans Park right next to there, and also the Senior Citizen Center behind it?
We're selling the Senior Citizen Center, and we're building a new one
Okay.
right across the street over here, over there. And we passed the bond in 2021 to build a new senior center, so that's in the works.
Okay.
That'll happen. The Kiwanis Park will be moved. It'll move to right behind us, actually.
Okay.
To a bigger spot with better parking, more accessible, not by the freeway or the highway, not a freeway, but Saginaw Boulevard. So, and the trains.
All right. Thank you very much.
We've absolutely, that's an important. We're not going to lose that Veterans Park, the Kiwanis Park. It's a big part of the city, so we will move it and continue to honor the folks there.
Okay. Thank you for your time.
No, thank you. Anybody else? Good question. I'm sure other folks had that in their head too. I'm glad you asked it. Anybody else? All right, then at 7 o'clock, I think it's out of public hearing, and I'll entertain a motion. Councilmember Flaggy?
I make a motion that we pass ordinance number 2023-02 to rezone the existing fire station property.
All right, thank you, sir. Do I have a second? Councilmember Bighorst, please cast your vote. Motion passes. Would you please? Thank you. All right. We'll wait a second on the Mayor Pro Tem. All right, so at 7:01, we're back in a public hearing. Consider action regarding recommendation from Planning and Zoning Commission on request to amend the Code of Ordinances. Appendix A, amending Article 5, permitted uses, Article 6, zoning district, Article 8, supplemental district regulations, Article 12, definitions, providing standards for relating to the new neighborhood mixed-use zoning district. And this is Abra Nusser from Peloton. Welcome, Abra.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Back here again for the zoning show. Tonight on the menu we have the Neighborhood Mixed Use District Amendment. You previously approved this, but we are proposing an amendment this evening. So as you recall, we've got a comprehensive plan that we adopted in 2022. And the comp plan guides land uses and policies for the city, and new zoning districts are being created to implement that vision, especially the future land use and character framework. So the new zoning districts give a guide to not only city leadership and city staff, but also to the development community for what you want to see in these various areas. So once we adopt the new zoning districts, then we start applying them to various properties. So tonight is just a zoning district amendment. We aren't proposing to apply it to any properties this evening. So that looks kind of like that. We did have batch 1 NMU parcel public hearings to apply it to some properties, but we tabled that request to process this amendment. Once we process this amendment, whatever you may decide, then you can consider picking back up, applying it to that first batch of parcels in a separate night on a separate case. So the neighborhood mixed-use zoning district, the land use would be shops, restaurants, offices, entertainment, parks, gathering spaces with very limited residential. And then design would be low intensity, walkable destinations, max 2 stories, and connected to neighborhoods. So remember, some of these are zoned with much higher heights than this now in that first batch. But we have properties all over the city that have much more intense uses than what this would allow adjacent to existing residential. So it's a protection that we're applying. And then to get that desired neighborhood-oriented commercial development. Really, we want shops, places to eat, and entertainment. So it does have a commercial frontage requirement that really encourages the developer to install that commercial before the residential or with the residential. This proposed amendment, I'll go into that in a second. It proposes a Main Street feel, so the building's more towards the street side instead of just a sea of parking up front. So we want to encourage that really walkable environment along the street edge. And then gathering in park spaces within the development that people can sit and linger. The limited residential was due to commercial and market feasibility. We understand that there's a lot of residential in Saginaw already, but when we went through the comprehensive planning process, we discussed the fact that a lot of times to make this commercial come in at all, let alone in a timely manner, for lending and other purposes, having that residential to support the commercial is really important to make that commercial work. And then we did add in an overcrowding type provision that requires a minimum space between the residential structures. So on a townhome, there wouldn't be any space between the units because that's not a structure. But if you had like a build-to-rent project, then they would be required a minimum separation between each house, if you will. So then we did the batch 1 NMU parcel rezoning. Again, that's the areas for that. That's not on the menu this evening. We removed 6 and 10 from the recommendation based on P&Z. We tabled it at City Council on 12/7, got public hearing feedback. City Council voted to table that item so that we could process this amendment. So here's our amendment. The density provision, when we moved forward with the NMU district, there were questions by not only property owners but neighbors, and some of the interpretations were causing us to want clarification on the record when that came forward, and it's more conservative to actually put it in the ordinance. So what this does is, if the ground floor commercial uses are constructed, the maximum gross density for the development can be grouped. They still can't go higher than 2 stories. They still have those buffers we put in place. They still have the screening requirements, all those things. But if they wanted to do a 2-story project, in one corner, one quadrant, then they could more easily group their density. But if that ground floor commercial is not in, it requires them to not group their density. They can't do that until the commercial comes in, and they could only have a maximum of 8 dwelling units per acre on each acre. So they would literally have to draw acre squares, for lack of a better term, on their site, and they couldn't exceed more than 8 per square unless or until that commercial comes in. It's just further incentivizing them to get that commercial in. So once the commercial's in, they could group it. And in the build-to zone, we talked about that before, but it's different than a setback. So if you had a minimum setback of 20 feet, then that front edge of your building has to be a minimum of 20 feet back. A build-to zone actually requires you to pull the building forward so that you don't have a bunch of parking up front. You don't have to have the entire facade up front, but it does require a different type of design. You can still have parking on the side, parking in the back, but we're really encouraging that street edge to be more of a Main Street type feel and more neighborhood oriented. So that's an illustration of the build-to zone. So it can have that front facade anywhere between those lines, but it's not a minimum setback. So next steps, your potential action this evening would be to approve the neighborhood mixed-use zoning district amendment as proposed, and then we could, with your direction, pick back up that batch 1 parcel rezoning. With that, happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Abra? Council questions?
Trying to find the terminology here. You said something about, it's on page 13 or slide 13, talking about density, 8 houses per acre, and then you have this small print here that says can be increased up to 10 gross dwelling units per acre on each acre if activated amenity is provided. Would you please explain what that means?
Absolutely. So that was part of the original NMU district that you approved, and it actually encourages the developer to add an activated gathering space or an activated park within the development instead of just having their regular landscape buffers that maybe no one would sit in. So it encourages a plaza or a little park or activating a trail within the development. If they do that and it meets the minimum requirements in the NMU district as it stands today, which has a minimum size requirement, I think, of 2,500 square feet, then they could go up to 10 dwelling units per acre maximum.
Do they have to come to the council for that?
Nope. It's administrative.
And you said something about rental properties. Are all of these going to be rental properties? In this
but
neighborhood mixed use?
But residential uses would be allowed. as long as they met the space limitations and any other requirements of the zoning ordinance. So each, the permitted uses, we're not proposing to change that with this amendment. The only thing that's proposed to change with this amendment is this density grouping versus not grouping before the commercial comes in, and just clarifying what the build-to zone is.
Okay,
So
well, I just
everything
want
else
to know
would stay
before
the
we
same.
move forward, are we looking at strictly rental property or property that they could sell in these neighborhood mixed-use units?
So if a structure was multifamily, that is typically rental, but it could be owner-occupied, which would be a condo as we know it. And then, it could be standard single-family. All the residential uses are generally allowed by right in NMU, but they have to be low intensity and low density.
8 units per acre doesn't seem low density to me, but
Yeah, I mean, it's lower than what I believe you guys just approved on the south side of McElroy. I'm not sure what exactly the density of that build-to-rent project was. I don't anticipate anybody knowing that off the top of your head, but I believe that would be higher. Yeah, that was probably like 12 dwelling units per acre and did not have that minimum residential separation of 15 feet. And it didn't have the same buffers, screening, all that.
so on this build-to zone, you're talking about putting things right up against the street. What happens if they have to widen these streets in the future? That's not going to allow much space for that to happen.
It's outside the right-of-way. Having worked on the master thoroughfare plan, these areas all have plenty of right-of-way, more than enough.
So we're looking at expanding these streets in the future in these neighborhood mixed-use areas that you're identifying?
Not with this request.
No, but I said in the future.
So which road are we asking about?
Yes, any of them?
Should a potential right-of-way expansion be necessary, which I don't think will be based on our work on the master thoroughfare plan, on most, if not all, of the roads in Saginaw, there would still be additional room to get that right-of-way. If you get into a constrained right-of-way situation where, say, you need 10 feet, but you only have 5, that's where creative design solutions are going to come in. And sometimes, if there's a safety problem, then you take a look at either side and which one would be the least path of resistance. That's very rare, and we didn't come across any of those issues when we were doing the master thoroughfare plan.
Well, I'm thinking of like school zone areas, especially on McElroy.
Typically.
And Old Decatur.
Sure. Yeah, it would depend on what the issues were, but Old Decatur has more than enough right-of-way, and then McElroy is in design and has already gone under multiple phases of that, and I'm sure Trenton could allude to that, but I don't think there's any right-of-way issues that I'm aware of on McElroy that haven't already been designed and in the process. Would you?
There are a few spots in McElroy where we would need right away. I think my understanding of this would be when the plat would be developed, they would then dedicate the right of way, and then these build-to zones would be established off the new right of way.
Yeah, so nothing would be in the right-of-way line, and if they were unplatted, they would be required to dedicate that right-of-way and then back it off even more so than that. Right. There are some constrained pieces of McElroy, especially towards Saginaw Boulevard, that staff's already aware of, Kimley Horn, the city engineer's already aware of, and I know as part of the bond money and all that stuff that it's been in design for quite some time to fix those issues. It's probably the only one I'm aware of in Saginaw.
Can you explain to us what the benefit of having that no parking in the back?
Sure. Yeah, so one of the things that the community members expressed throughout the planning process, doing the comp plan, and in other formats where we talk to the community at like the farmers market about planning, people really want to have an enjoyable experience if they choose to walk. And once they get to a place like a shop or a restaurant, they want it to be a pleasant experience where they're not having a car right next to them. or a car out front, messing up the walkability of a place. Walkability was a huge theme that came out of the planning process because Saginaw is very auto-oriented in a lot of areas right now. So that build-to zone is important because it sends all the parking to the back, typically, or to the side, where you can really make that a welcoming entrance for the building, especially if you're coming from the adjacent neighborhood as it's intended, right? You could actually walk to eat somewhere. Imagine that. And then, it keeps the cars kind of grouped, but it still allows the developer enough flexibility to get the required parking in. And it also ends up encouraging them to have more plaza-type areas, like minor little, gathering spaces.
Think Roanoke, Grapevine, walking around those, going to eat there, walking around those, how awesome that is. That's what we want.
Yeah.
And this is the way to get there. This is step one to get there.
Yeah, so Roanoke, those are all pulled up to a build-to zone in that code because you're trying to establish a street edge where people feel comfortable walking from shop to shop or from shop to entertainment area.
Councilmember Copeland?
And something I like about it is it will provide a more pleasing streetscape.
Mm-hmm.
And where we've all seen these old-fashioned shopping centers that are just all in one line, and you've got all the cars in front, it's just not pleasant to look at.
Yeah.
So I think it would beautify the city.
Yeah,
And
we've
we're
done
always
everything
looking
we
for
can
that.
to buffer that car experience. So when we originally adopted the NMU, a couple months ago, there's parking lot screening that's new as well. So it requires some evergreen shrubs and stuff to beautify that street
Mm-hmm.
edge even more.
Councilman, other questions for Abra?
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am. Well done, as always. Again, we are in a public hearing, so I would encourage anyone in the public who has any questions or comments, please approach it right now. Yes, sir. Come on up.
Mayor, Council, it's always good to see y'all. I'll try to convey my thoughts on this. When we initially looked at this back in November, it was brought to our attention that it's probably going to need some tweaking, and hopefully we got that straightened out to where it works for everybody. But as the outgoing county judge had stated, growth is inevitable, and change is going to be inevitable too, and it's all coming this way. I look at this neighborhood mixed-use ordinance as contemporary type zoning, and I think it's extremely beneficial for Saginaw because, Mayor, as you had pointed out, Roanoke, Grapevine, and I've seen it in other communities, it's a good thing. And this is what people are looking for nowadays, and the people who have money is what they're looking for nowadays. So I just wanted to express my thoughts on that. Thank y'all.
Thanks, sir. Anyone else? We're still in a public hearing. The mic is open. If not, at 7:18, take us out of public hearing, and I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move that we approve the new neighborhood mixed-use zoning district ordinance number 2023-03.
And 2022-04, right?
Yeah.
2004.
20.
There's two.
Yeah, two. So yeah, that one too. 2002-04.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Do I have a second? Councilmember Flaggy, please cast your votes. Motion passes. All right. Thank you, Abra. Great work. Let's move forward. Item number 12, consider starting board appointments. Councilmembers Lawson, Bighorst, and Copeland. Who's going to speak on this? Cindy, go ahead.
Mayor, I cannot tell you how excited I am at the response that we received from our citizens when we put a request out for filling vacancies on our boards and commissions. I'm just overwhelmed. That's one of the things that I love about Saginaw is that when you ask them, the people step up. We did not fill every vacancy, but we filled a majority of them. So we're going to go ahead and, I guess, list all of them at one time. And then if there's any objection, I guess we can work that out later, but just approve them all at once.
That's right. It's certainly permissible to make a single motion for all.
Okay. All right, so for the Parks and Recreation Board, the subcommittee of Nick and Mary and me recommend that we move Jane Lyon from alternate 1 to place 1. We appoint Michael Arbuckle to alternate 1 and Adele Torres to alternate 2. For the Animal Shelter, we want to move Carol Cox from alternate 1 to place 8. Move John Pete from alternate 2 up to alternate 1, and appoint Laura Yandel to alternate 2. And if I mispronounce anybody's name, please forgive me. For the Diversity and Inclusion Board, we want to assign or appoint Val Visas to place 3. Keep Saginaw Beautiful was going to be a huge challenge that we thought, but the response was overwhelming. We want to move Teresa Johnson from place 5 to place 1. Move Kelly Stewart from place 6 to place 2. Appoint Crystal Philp to place 3. Appoint Corey Blake to place 4. Melissa King to place 5. Lena Goff to place 6, and Jared Corsi to place 7. And the final applicant, Eric King, we want to appoint him to the Board of Adjustments, alternate 2. So that leaves 5 positions open on the Diversity and Inclusion, 2 positions on Keep Saginaw Beautiful, and 2 positions on the Library Board that are still vacant. So thank you, Saginaw.
Council, any questions for Cindy?
Mary.
Oh, Mary, go ahead.
I had a question, just a comment for the audience and for anybody watching at home. You know, as Cindy noted, we still do have some vacancies. And not only that, a certain amount, we have staggered ending of appointments, and those will all come up for July, end of July. So we will most likely have some more vacancies.
End of June.
End of June?
End of June.
End of June. So, you know, anybody you know that you think would be interested, try to encourage them to apply. It's something that is very rewarding to be a part of, and you learn a lot about the city, meet some new people, and, you know, it's a great experience. So I would encourage people, and thank Pedro for that notice you put out. That was helpful. About the boards, about the vacancies.
It wasn't him.
Thank you.
Any other questions, folks? If not, I will entertain a motion.
Mayor, I make a motion that we approve the results.
Board appointments.
Board appointments as projected.
Okay. Do I have a second? Councilmember Tucker, please cast your vote. That was bad. Thank y'all. Mary, Cindy, Nick, thank y'all for putting in the hard work.
How will these appointees be notified?
They'll each be sent a letter. We do that after the appointments every year. They'll get a letter that will let them know what board they've been appointed to, what position, who works with that board, and when they should expect to be contacted.
Okay, thank you.
Janice. All right, item number 13, discussion of 2023 work plan project. For that, our city manager, Gabriel.
Mayor and Council, I have 12 projects, a list that came from all of you for discussion tonight. The goal is to get the list finalized, send that to Bryn so that we create a resolution that would be acted upon at a future council meeting. So I'll read the project list. Again, these came from you. These set the priorities for myself and staff for the coming year. Employee Suggestion and Incentive Program, customer service request reporting, an employee survey, a parks action plan, bond project delivery, which is Knowles Phase 2, and Library Senior Center construction. I want to note that that is a project, something to consider, that will cross fiscal years, so something to consider. A salary compression and market study, Public Works and Animal Shelter Facility needs and planning. I think we kicked that project off today. Some council members I know had meetings with the consultant looking at animal shelter needs, so that's underway. Focus code ordinance updates. I would like your direction as to a specific area. So saying we need to update ordinances is too broad. We would need your thoughts on a particular section or focus area, such as animal services, property standards, that sort of thing. Project was mentioned regarding video communications. People respond well to video. We're limited in our video production capabilities. We do use the Hollenstein AV class, so I think we can get a couple videos from them each year, which we've done in the past. Most recently, you may have seen it was a recruitment type video for lifeguards. Really, really nice, positive, and they do a great job. Survey action plan. This is kind of a broad topic. Would need your thoughts here if this was a project we kept for specific kind of actionable things. As you'll recall, the survey touched every department of the city. One thing, if you remember Ron's presentation, that I think we can emphasize is repeated communication of all the things going on. So, for example, sidewalk work. We're doing more sidewalk work now than we ever have done in the past. That's noted as a concern from citizens. That's maybe something we need to remind people, that we're putting new sidewalks in and making improvements. Stray animal / shelter management plan. I got a call from Stacy Allman in Lake Worth. She's working with a class out of UT Arlington looking for a project, and I mentioned this. She said the students may have interest, so we may get some students to look at shelter management type discussions. I also think that some of these questions or topics will be approached with the planning or the needs assessment for a future animal shelter facility. Last project, 12th project, is discussion of a public safety camera program, flock cameras. That's something we can certainly discuss. So what I'm asking from you tonight, number one, is this the right list? Number two, are there changes you see in these projects? And then again, the end goal is to get a resolution for council action that the council adopts the next council meeting.
Can you tell me explain the public safety camera, the flock program?
Yeah, so may defer to the chief, just a high level.
Yeah, so what this system is actually a crime reduction initiative. It uses license plate reading cameras, takes pictures of vehicles, the rear side of the vehicle with the description and license plate number for all vehicles coming into town on roadways where you install them. Most cities around us have started using these cameras. Flock themselves state that it results in about a 60% reduction in crime. Talking to cities around us through their investigative efforts, they're pretty much exclusively using these flock cameras now to investigate crime, to track suspects and where they go. Once you sign into a system like this, then we have access to all flock cameras in our region. They're in HOAs, they're in other cities where the cities have actually installed them. Fort Worth is so impressed with these cameras, they're adding 900 to the 200 they already had. So it's largely just a crime reduction initiative is how it's being built out. So.
Is this something that we can add more cameras onto as time progresses?
Yes, you can add whenever you want. What they recommend is you start with ingress roadways, so cameras put on cars coming into town. Then as you expand the program, you can do internal streets to track better movement of vehicles that are moving around, and then also add cameras to egress, so you get your vehicles that are leaving the city.
And how many cameras are we considering for this first round, and how much approximately are they each?
So what we've actually proposed in the packet you have is 14 cameras. 14 cameras doesn't cover every street coming into Saginaw, but it covers the major thoroughfares. The expense of those cameras is $2,500 per camera per year. There's an installation fee of $350 to install the camera initially on non-TxDOT property or roadways, and on TxDOT roadways it's $750 for the initial installation. And then that installation fee is not a reoccurring fee, but the camera itself is. It's $2,500 per camera. So what we'd be looking at is roughly $44,800 for initial implementation and $37,500 for ongoing annual maintenance of those systems with the initial implication of 15 cameras.
So this is just to evaluate it, right?
Yeah, correct. So
not to approve it.
Yep.
We're getting a little down in the weeds, right?
Okay, yeah.
That's a great point.
Again, I mean, it's always good to know how much money we're expecting to spend for these types of projects.
Well, but also, we may not know right now for some of these projects.
Sure.
That's why we're investing, so we could have no idea. This is really early, so.
Correct. The intent would be to workshop. There are concerns about, monitoring and that sort of thing, so no action items as far as implementation, unless that's the council's desire in the future. If it is, we would roll that through our fiscal year 24 budget, so our budget we'll start working on soon. Yeah.
And I think you forgot the employee survey on your list.
I've got it. Yeah, if I forgot to mention that, I apologize. But yeah, employee survey with OnPoint Insights. Ron mentioned that he does these commonly, and we're waiting on a scope. Granted, the number of responses is going to be 200 or less based on our employees. So we have about 160 full time, and then probably 180 now. Seasonally, you add in our seasonal staff, 50 plus.
I'm reading through this, Gabe. Because we did the survey we just did.
Correct.
Where's that at on here? Because we're just going to add that to take action.
Yeah, there's the mention was survey action plan, and my feedback to you is that is too broad, because as you recall that the survey addresses every department. I mean, the initial kind of overarching thoughts I think that Ron shared was that maybe communication, we need to tell people what we're doing.
I thought on the meeting we talked about looking at the 3 lowest scoring areas with opportunities for improvement.
Yeah, y'all tell me what your priority is.
My thought on this was, how about staff look at it and offer up potentially 3, and then council send in their thoughts for 3 as well, and we can see what makes sense, which we want to focus on. Because I don't know today, we don't know, but we need to make that decision. Council can offer up, and also staff think about it, what makes sense, or what you would be willing to could bite off, and we can come to agreement on which 3 we focus on.
Sure.
But that's not today. That's just this is
yeah. Feedback's good. We can get 3 kind of action. One thing I mentioned in my notes in the last email I sent to you is maybe we do educational mailers on topics of concern. So, for example, we mentioned sidewalk repairs. There's a lot of misunderstanding related to zoning. You've heard these complaints. Why are we allowing another chicken restaurant? We don't control, these things.
We love chicken in Saginaw.
That's right. So, happy to bring that back. The other area I would request better clarification from y'all is if we do Code of Ordinance updates, which we've done the past 2 years, I think, would be helpful to have a focus area. Maybe animal services makes sense because we're talking about the animal shelter planning. Maybe property standards.
Yeah, I would on that one. I've definitely got an interest in that. I've heard from people who works in that area that we have multiple ordinances that are outdated, that they actually are even against what the new state ordinances are and stuff. And there's some that one goes against the other. So definitely
to me, focusing on the ones that like building outside shed, things like that. I'd really like to get information from the experts. I mean, I'm not an expert, but Larry Little and his group, that they have to deal with this stuff every day. And
I know Larry's been working on parking.
Yes, for the off-street
ordinance.
parking is the one that currently
Off-street,
focused on.
yeah, comment.
Yeah. And I was going to say something along that line. I mean, what are the ordinances that we seem to have the biggest complaints about? I know the facility rentals is a huge issue.
Yeah.
We'd
I'm
probably
not
need
aware.
to look
Could
at
you
that
share
one.
that facility rentals?
Well, it's just, and I know Ms. Stewart has spoken up several times.
Yeah, that's not
about
an ordinance, so that's sort of a operating procedure.
It's fee schedule or?
Yeah, it's not by ordinance.
Well, it's not, well, I was trying to get there. For example, help me out here. When people rent facilities, there's supposed to be someone there to oversee, and they're supposedly paid in cash. The buildings are not left in a good condition, or the facilities are not left in good condition. What can we do to improve on that, to try to make things easier on staff?
Sure.
So and is that an ordinance?
It's not an ordinance.
It's not an ordinance? Okay. Then I guess we don't worry about that one.
Yeah.
But parking is a huge one that we've talked about, and, there are a couple of others.
Sure. Again, this is your list. You tell us.
I like the property standard one.
We'll make it happen.
That sounds really broad, but
honestly, property standards code they get everybody's attention. So, and I would imagine there's more than parking to examine. So,
Yeah, as you can imagine, the ordinances that detail property standards, it's pretty massive.
Sure.
So just taking that as a big bite is pretty tough. The ones that create the most controversy, off-street parking, is one that we're dealing with, but that does take a lot of staff time and a lot of effort to see what other cities have. That's what we base most of the ordinances on, what's working in other cities. So right now, with all the growth going on, that's taking a lot of effort. So the priority, so we're not able to move as fast as we'd like to on those, but it is being undertaken.
Do you keep track of the ordinances that get most of the attention? Like people, when they go out and write an ordinance and the people don't understand what's going on and they try to, do you keep track of that somehow, or does Larry or anybody? I'm just asking the question. I don't know.
development-wise, or I guess
ones that Larry writes the most.
Yeah.
the most
like
things about.
citations.
Yeah.
Sure,
Like
Larry
code
writes.
enforcement side. Yeah, I would guess based on volume, tall grass is far and away the largest, but
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm talking about like if in the property, like if, well, we've already done the carports and everything, but
Yeah,
what if
sure.
it was a carport, if that was one, or the length of your driveway, whatever, do we
Yeah,
have something that,
No, I'm happy to ask and get
Okay.
some options too.
I'm sure that they would know which ones have the most problem, yeah.
Sure. No,
We
that's
can
good
get together a
thought.
list of what takes up the most staff time or the common ones.
Yep.
But I want to say one thing, the ordinances came for a reason at some point, so just changing them out of thinking that we need to do it, that has a domino effect and not necessarily the best avenue. We certainly should revisit them, but every ordinance that we have in the city today was put there for a reason.
Right. Well, what I was thinking was that if we knew maybe what the citizens didn't understand about the ordinance, or if there was some different way we could word it or something without having to go, you know what I'm saying, with every ordinance go down, maybe it might be easier for staff and everything to worry about the ones that the
Yeah.
citizens don't understand the most.
Well, hold on here. I'm getting a little perturbed. We can't tell our citizens that an ordinance needs updated, or that the ordinance is even against state law and stuff, but the council needs to update it. And then the council says, okay, let's put it on the work plan, and then don't tell us. I mean, I agree, ordinances are put in place, but if we know that there's ordinances that's bad, and we know that there's ordinances going against the state, tell us. I mean, I can tell you, I can invest a few hours, I can come down there and I can have somebody train me and I can start reading through them. And I'm willing to do that if that's what I have to do.
So
for
anything
the
that
citizens of
conflicts
Saginaw.
with state law
I'm not aware of any,
supersedes.
so if there
Yeah.
are some, I'd like to know
Yeah,
about them.
that
will
that's
get
what
my
I'm saying.
focus
That's what I've
immediately.
heard. So if there isn't any,
then I ask that the people who report to you,
Sure,
the
property
public works,
standards.
they stand up and they say that, and then the next time I have a citizen call me at night or call one of us and say, such and such said that, I'm going to write her down and call you and say, hey.
If you let me know, it's
That's right. That's what I'm
immediately.
saying. We're here to fix it.
And it may not be an ordinance problem, it may be a communication problem.
Could be.
And I want to stand up for staff because they take maximum effort to explain those. If somebody has a question about it or they're having an issue with an ordinance, staff goes over and above to explain that to them and find resolution.
And if we got ordinance that needs to be changed, I can't speak for all of us here, but I'm willing to do if the staff is having problems with that. That's why we put down here to get that fixed for them.
Yeah,
we're here to do that.
I'm happy too. My office is happy to begin reviewing the code of ordinances. It's just obviously a significant task and rather costly. We're happy to do it. I just don't do it, unprompted because of the cost. But we can certainly review for preemption issues if you all would like.
You don't keep our code by your bed at night if you're double sleeping, or
only to help with insomnia.
Mary, do you have a question?
I just wanted to agree with what Nick said earlier about the animal services ordinances. I think it would be a great idea to work on those. And I know Jose has some good ideas along those lines. And a funny story I can tell on myself. When I first got elected to City Council in 2017, my goal, I was going to start immediately reading every single ordinance and writing down what needed to be changed. And I have not done any of that. Because when I got elected, there was so much other stuff going on and so many things we had to read that I never have done it. So it does need to be done.
But I like the idea of the legal piece of at least getting a small section and having brain scheme attack it, a small bite at a time. I like that. Because one thing we know, if it contradicts state law, we have to fix it. That's a good one, but we don't know where it is. There's some in there, absolutely. But we need to find those. Where are they? I don't know, but we at least start chewing at them.
I think to Councilmember Big Horse's point, the education piece is important, so sometimes people don't understand, and Councilmember Lawson in the past has mentioned, monolithic driveway, so what does that mean? So, we can send out kind of there's always an education piece, but I think we can come back with a list of some things to consider.
And I think, is there anything missing on here that we don't have that y'all would like to add? I think we need to take a look at that.
Well, I'd kind of like to clarify the video communication. What I had in mind when I recommended that is maybe this could go hand in hand with the ordinance. We can have, even if it's just with an iPhone video, it doesn't have to be a long, lengthy video. It could be just a couple of minutes. This is what, if you've got this parking situation, this is how you remedy it. Sure. And a visual may be far more effective.
Yeah, so you weren't talking about professionally produced videos. You were talking about just
I was just talking about a little short
video.
snippets. Yeah.
Okay. I see.
Shorts or something along that line.
Just to facilitate communication.
Yes.
Yeah, kind of like what Plano got their award for, where they used an iPhone holder and some things, and they did short little 2-minute videos about all that stuff.
That's a good way of looking at it. Yeah. Okay. All right, anything else y'all see that we are missing on this list? Any big rocks? Anything you want to take off that you don't think is worth our time? Because each one of these will require significant staff time.
Yeah, and it's a good list. I mean, I think it's manageable as it is now.
My question is this too much? Is it too little? Is it just right?
Was
Where
there
do we
any-
go, Goldilocks?
Was there anything from 22 that needs to roll over into this 23 list?
The only thing that's, I believe, outstanding that will be addressed probably within the next month are the rezonings. So council just approved the neighborhood mixed use. It would just be a matter of applying the rezonings to the identified parcels. So
the fire department and the Knowles projects don't need to be rolled over into this list?
I mean, I wouldn't think so because they're going to be finished here pretty soon. So by the time we adopt, we're probably at least a meeting away, and they're substantially complete essentially. But good thought. If you wanted to just keep, the one project that's going to be cross fiscal, in a calendar year would be the senior center library construction. If you wanted to remove that project, we're already committed. We already issued the bonds, so it's going to happen.
I mean, it's by no means is this a slam dunk park. I think we'll have to work hard at it, but I think it's doable, and that's really what you want with a work plan. You want something that you're going to have to, it's going to have to struggle a little bit on.
Commit to and deliver. Yep. Okay. Well, that's good feedback. I think we'll come back with some ideas and hopefully maybe a draft resolution, some clarification. And
I mean, I will say that. Me personally, I want this approved ASAP so we can hold you to it.
Yeah, the sooner the better is more helpful for staff, but I realize it takes discussion and revision. So, yeah, we'll get there.
So what's the time frame you think before we can have a vote on this and get it locked down?
Bryn's going to read at his bedside this evening the Code of Ordinances. No. So the actual resolution is simple. It's just this project list and adopted, but the follow-up items, I can get that to you.
Because some of the stuff we talked about today is just, I mean, we approve it, we approve this, and then it's having meetings, understand. I don't think we have to have all, the ordinance. We don't have to have every ordinance we want to. We're just saying we're going to look at the ordinance.
Yeah, I'll get you that list, the suggestions from staff. So what I heard was code enforcement or code compliance related, and then potentially some of the animal related ordinances, which is timely. We're talking about a shelter and a management plan. It makes sense. So I'll bring that back at our next meeting.
Are you saying we need to actually have the ordinances that we're going to change before we approve the work plan? Or because I didn't think
No. I would just say here's our topic areas.
Okay.
So here's to Mayor Pro Tem's point. Here's the heartburn, parking. I don't know what fences. Apparently that could be tricky, but I can get you that list and. Then we can say, okay, here's our focus.
Can we have a goal to have it ready to vote on by next council meeting?
Yeah, that'd be my plan. Yeah.
I want to get her done.
I'm with you.
Is that something you can maybe tie into your weekly departmental update?
Sure. Yeah. And then I do the monthly reports where we track progress. Projects like the chief mentioned, the flock camera. These are likely workshops. Probably most any of these projects would have a future workshop and/or action items. So, yep.
Cool. Appreciate it, Gabe.
Yes, sir.
Good.
Yep. All right. We're set.
Good. Thank you, Gabe. Item 14. Discussion regarding salary compression and starting salaries. Director of Human Resources, Melanie.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Keith's bringing that up for us. So we need to talk about employee salaries. So basically there's three simple budget options: maintaining the services, reducing services, or enhancing services. It's either going to cost more, or what you need to tell us what we want to reduce, or tell us what we want to enhance. On that. The next thing is that Saginaw is at near or bottom of comparable agencies in salaries across the departments. Just like, when we talked about the lifeguards and customer service for the pool to get that staffed, we are competing against restaurants where people stay inside and get higher dollar amount. Waffle House pays $18 an hour. You have Buc-ee's that pays $20 an hour. So it's just a little bit hard to get the people hired when they're going to be working out in the heat, especially with the water and public services. So we're recommending that full-time salaries be moved to $17.50 an hour, either now or mid-year adjustments. This affects 12 people. We have 8 filled positions that we have that are under $17.50, and then we have 4 vacant. We have 3 in the water department and then 1 in public services. The public services one has been vacant since October. And then on the water side, I know we've had at least 1 for at least 2 budget years because we don't have any applicants that have any certifications, and so it's hard to get somebody in here that has that and with the pay that what it is. And then with the retirements, public services had 2 people that retired. They had 20 years plus years of service. And then we had 3 people that left. We had 2 people that went to Keller and 1 person that went to Azle. And then on the water side, we had 3 people that retired. One person had 30 years of service, 1 had 27 years of service, 1 had another 20 years, and then the recent one that just left was Jared, that had 22 years of service, that went to the public sector. So it's hard to get people with the licenses. We did at one time had 9 people that had licenses, and right now we're down to 4 people that have licenses.
Licenses for what?
For water,
Okay.
water and wastewater. So we have Randy Newsom's one of them, and then we have 3 other ones that have 2 licenses, and we have 1 that has 1 license. It takes about 5 years to get a license now. It's a little bit more education and years of service before you can test to do that. So we don't have anybody that's applying with the licenses.
When is mid-year budget adjustments approximately? When would that be? March?
What? I didn't hear the question.
When would when's our mid-year adjustments? When would that be? Is that March?
Yeah,
Okay.
we do 6 months in.
Okay, thank you.
So what's the minimum license? Is it Class D? Can
What did you say?
for the water?
Class C.
Class C, you
Water
have to have a
license,
Class C. Can we hire them with a Class D and then work them towards a Class C?
It's only good for 1 year.
1 year, yeah.
So it would need to be really useful for
Yeah.
state agency purposes. You have to have a C to operate the system. So the D is just kind of get your feet wet, take one class proving, you can learn one subject and take a test.
Right.
And you lose it after a year, it's kind of useless for that. For our distribution purposes. And we don't operate a plant.
Operate a plant, you have to have Class A.
Well, to work at a plant.
Oh, okay, gotcha. I thought you said operate a plant.
Yeah, chief operator.
Yeah, yeah.
And then we're also recommending that public work employees, crew leader level and below receive a step adjustment mid-year, approximately 3%. So that's split up between the general fund and enterprise fund. So you're looking at 4 people in the general fund, which would be public services, and then enterprise we'd have 5 people, and that's the cost for that. And then now we'll have Assistant Chief Brandon Bannett talk about the police department.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. Like Melanie said, I'm going to briefly discuss the current step plan recommendations for the police department and some salary comparisons. But first of all, I need Officer Stewart to put your earmuffs on. I can't afford to lose anybody else, so. And I do have. It's going to be the bottom one, I believe. No, that's not going to be it. Yep, that's it. Yep, that was it, the PowerPoint. Yep. All right, as many of you know, we currently have an 8-step structure throughout our ranks, not including our starting salary at the police officer. The starting salary for police officers, once they reach their first year, they hit into step 1, and then they go through 8 ranks. Prior to 2 years ago, this process wasn't applied properly, unsystematically, and so for several years, we've developed the compression issue that we're dealing with today. Being compressed, we really have a difficult time competing with these other agencies that are offering significant pay raises at the lateral positions. So our recommendation for mid-year is to move 13 employees. As you can see there on the chart, there's 11 sworn and 2 civilian. With benefits, I think 30% benefits, that's going to put us at about $48,000 to get everyone in their correct step. Raise my hand. So $48,000 to get 13 employees to their correct step, which is going to help with the compression issues. Now we're going to move on to the salary comparison. You have all of this information in your packet. Chief Ragsdale did an outstanding job with the comparison. He compared 24 agencies in total, but just for the average comparison, and that's going to be at the bottom of that graph, he removed the 4 largest agencies. So we're comparing just with those 20. You can go ahead and change it, Keith. And then these are the results of his comparison. And obviously the one that jumps out at you is the first one, the 44% at the recruit level. And that has an immediate impact on our ability to recruit these young kids coming in. They can go to these other agencies and have a significant increase in their pay. The officer pay, we're 13% behind on both starting and top out. And then at the dispatcher pay, we're 18 behind on starting and almost 40% on the top out. Then it should be noted there, you're all aware that Blue Mound dissolved their dispatch center. We did not get one application from any of the dispatchers over there. They went on to make $21 to $25 an hour, I believe, at other agencies. And we started $18.84 an hour. So we're significantly behind there, and as well as the dispatch supervisor.
You're talking about top-out pay. How long does it take someone to reach that top level?
Top-out pay in our city would be through the 8 steps.
8 steps, 8 years then?
If it's applied every year, yes, ma'am.
And just to let everybody know, even when they top out in Saginaw, our competitors around here has a higher top-out salary. So let's say that they top out at $50,000. Well, all the other cities around here doesn't top out to $60,000, $70,000. So even if we get them to the top out faster, they're still behind, and we got to fix that. So I just want to point that out, that it's not how fast you get there, it's even what the limit is.
And as you can see from your handout, those discrepancies in the percentages continue throughout the ranks. The next slide is another, these agencies are coming up with incentives to attract these applicants. Obviously, the big one is the lateral pay. A 5-year officer, like Officer Stewart there, he can go in at one of these other agencies making what a 5th-year officer would make there, anywhere between 20 and 25% more than he's making here. So that's the big one. The education incentive pay, they offer for bachelor's degrees, master's degrees. As you can see, fitness, dry cleaning, gym memberships. Those agencies are starting to think outside the box. How do we attract these people to us? Other agencies, too, will also offer a night shift differential pay up to 6%. That seems to be a big one. So just some examples of what else we're having to deal with as far as attracting these applicants.
What do you mean by take-home police units? You mean car?
Actually, yeah, take-home police units, and that I don't think I put that on there just to kind of give that as an example. Agency our size, I don't think we could most likely not afford to do that. I know Grand Prairie does that. If you live within the city limits, you have your own take-home car.
Fort Worth does it too. I've got 3 of them in our neighborhood.
Yeah. You can move on to the next slide, Keith. So I'll leave you with this. Our current patrol tenure is approximately around 5.5 years. As you can see, that's 30% of our staff in patrol. And, they're between that 3 to 5 year mark. They're the most marketable. They're the most likely to accept one of these lateral positions. And then if you add and bump that down to 2 years, to 2 to 5 years, you're over half of our patrol staff are marketable and would be eligible for a pretty significant pay increase at another agency. And one note to that is the agencies that do require college hours, if you have 2 years of experience, they'll waive that. So that's just another tool to entice these guys to go to a different agency. So right now we feel fortunate, that we haven't experienced a mass exodus. I think it's coming. So, once that bubble bursts, once that first guy leaves, I think you're going to see a domino effect if we don't do something. And with that, I'll take any questions, or if you're going to continue.
Any questions for Chief?
I read a report just yesterday on if we don't resolve this, what we'll end up with, and not only the whole thing, but in the police department, is they did a huge thing on what they call roaming police officers, and it's about 2.5% across the nation. And these are police officers that they're about to go under review order, so they quit their job and they go to another facility. And they did a whole study on that, and so they jump from city to city, and they named it roaming police officers. And they've done a study showing that these police officers are the ones, when they follow them through their career before they do something really bad or something, they end up causing a lot of problems with the citizens and stuff. If we don't at least pay all of our employees, and definitely our police officers who is directly with the citizens, a fair wage, then that's exactly what we can expect to get as police officers coming in here, the ones that nobody else wants. So this is a real problem. So, yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
And do you find that Saginaw is unique in that we're 95% surrounded by a large metropolitan area? And I think probably a lot of police officers would choose to go to a smaller suburban area that might not be so close to such a huge city. Is that a detriment, do you think, in our attracting officers?
No, because we're in the DFW area. So, we're landlocked by Fort Worth. So we're having to deal with everything these other cities are having to deal with.
So the whole entire Metroplex
region
is,
in the same
that's
boat.
what we look at.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Studies have shown a person's willing to drive up to about 45 minutes. That's multiple staff have said that, about 45 minutes. So draw you a 45-minute line around what it takes to commute, and there's your majority of your competitors.
So in that radius, you're talking there could be 50 agencies a guy could work for.
Oh yeah,
or probably even more. That's probably low. Within 45 minutes of his house.
Oh yeah.
And I understand the need, but this is probably for Gabe, how do we plan to fund this?
So I'd recommend the recommendations we do now because they're pretty critical. Things are looking good. We're very conservative in our budgeting related to sales tax, so we're experiencing sales tax growth this year. We do have salary savings, although with minimum staffing, especially in public safety, it's diminishing returns, so we use more overtime. So the adjustments we can handle now within our existing budget. Ultimately, as we look at our FY24 budget, there's full year costs and roll-up costs, but
I say here, and I read through your all's things, and I wrote down 4 things that was recommended in there. So, raise minimum wage to $17.50, provide step adjustments to the crew leaders and below, move all police department personnel to the correct steps. They should be at their correct steps. And then I thought I read in there, overall, over, say, the next, 3 years, provide a 5 to 10% increase with a further behind the positions receiving larger adjustments. And to me, I was going through it and I was trying to map and say, okay, is this going to get us at least treading water now? Get our head above water. And the only problem I had to that is me being a manager, big company and stuff, looking at this, is no matter what, we're going to also have to adjust our pay scale from, we can raise this up, but we also got to raise that higher end up and let to say, okay, somebody, if a guy tops out and he can go down the street and keep getting more money, he's going to. So we're going to have to look at that and adjust all of our things. And on that, and I didn't see that
answered anywhere in the report. I think I replied back to you.
Yeah, so we've talked about that. So, like, for example, the first recommendation, our entry-level full-time positions, when you move folks up to 1750, there's somebody, for the sake of a discussion, it's not necessarily in real life, making 1751, and they need to be adjusted so that they're separated.
Trickle
You-
down, yeah,
you
trickle down
can't-
effect.
Yeah, there's a trickle-down effect, and you can't create more compression, which in the first strike we're trying to mitigate, to resolve. The other thing I'd mention, and Lee and I visited with some fire department staff yesterday. It's really department-wide. I mean, the hiring environment is tremendously competitive. So I feel like we need to focus on our employees here currently and get competitive before we try to recruit. You know, I know Mr. Reams has got to go out and find water folks. It's tough. It
The
is
water
super-
folks, luckily I got an inside
Well,
scoop.
sure.
That's what I was asking. But yeah, I mean, that's real tough.
Yeah.
Everybody's looking for people with water license right now.
But I do think we're very thankful for the support of the council in the past. I think taking action and recognizing this as an issue over some amount of time is very important, and we'll just keep making progress.
Could we have this as maybe a work session or something? Get Kim, get involved and say, okay, if we did these things like I said, I just took what you got and I just laid up boom, boom, boom like that. If we did this and we gave, we said, okay, these people are getting a, thing, and in 3 years we're treading water. What would that cost us, and where are we at, and what would we have to give up? Or not give up, but where do we adjust the money? Because here's the thing, it will happen. I guarantee you. I've had it happen in companies I've worked for. If we don't pay people a competitive salary, they'll leave. And jobs that require certifications, well, they're not going to have to come to us because there's 10 other cities just right around us that is doing this. So, I mean, seriously, we need to do something. If all we do is try to raise, 1750, that all you're doing now is creating another problem. We need a multi-step, multi-year solution to solve this problem.
I completely agree, and our intent this evening was this is the first discussion, one of several others. I think each department is unique, so we definitely can come back. The other issue is that we're going out for bid for health insurance this year. Unless something is completely unexpected, I'm confident we'll have increases that we have to pass down to employees. Some of this terminology is not uniform, maybe city to city. So STEP is fairly uniform as it relates to public safety. Now that percentage can change 3 to 5%, but you have some agencies that are saying you're getting a guaranteed step. You start at point A and you end at step, 10. And here's where you can project your career on top of a cost of a living adjustment, which, the Social Security Administration for 23, 8.7% increase. So everybody's feeling, the effects of inflation. So I say that we'll come back with you with information. Very important that we're discussing it. We recognize it early, and we'll keep talking.
I mean, my thing is, we're not dealing with anything else our competitors aren't. Keller's having to deal with it, Watauga's having to deal with it, and we should be able to tread water with them, compete with them, get as good if not better employees with them, and give our employees what they deserve.
Yes, I completely agree, and I would say some of the folks that we compared to let things get so out of hand that they made very drastic pay plan adjustments.
Right.
So Crowley, for example, we have 4 firefighters that came from Crowley. There was pay and equity issues. Crowley now pays more in the fire service than Saginaw. Azle used to be, what was that, last year they adjusted, 20-some%, pretty significant in their police department. Azle's 10,000 people, it's a smaller agency, but things got so bad that they corrected.
And that's why I hope I'm on council, and I hope to goodness that don't happen
Sure.
here in Saginaw. And that's why you see me talking up, because
I see the train coming.
Yeah.
And if we don't do something now, then we'll be like those cities having to deal with it, and we've lost our good employees.
Well, and the good news for us, which is hard for a growing city, we have more demands on service with a growing population, but we will have, growing financial capacity as well. So,
Can you go back to recommendation number 1, please? Whoever's driving this.
Keith.
Go back to recommendation number 1, please.
Number 1.
Or was that too loud? There you go. Awesome. All right, so this is the 1750 deal, $21,000. So I want to point out here, and all of these others, remember this is general fund and enterprise fund. So enterprise fund is self-funding. We sell water. We get money from that. So that's a little different than general fund, so just keep that in mind on all these. Does anybody have a big issue with, because my recommendation is let's go forward with number 1. Anybody have a big issue with funding number 1? Just number 1. Everybody okay with that? Everybody good with that? The question is, what's a recommendation from staff? Now? Wait till budget adjustment in March, as Kim said?
I would say.
What would be the best?
I would say now,
Now would be your recommendation?
like February 1st.
February 1st? Anybody have an issue with funding it now? No issue?
By the time we include the benefits, what is that going to cost us?
This is the amount right here.
That does include the benefits?
It's fully loaded, okay.
Okay.
Good question. All right, go to number 2, please. This is the crew one for Public Works, 10,000 total. That's, mostly funded by enterprise fund and general fund as well, and fully loaded $10,000. Again, anybody have a big issue with funding this? Because I'm all for funding this. If we want to do
With
it
the
now.
1 and 2 together?
1 and 2, well, let's see, yes on 1, now 2. Do you want to do 2 as well? Right. They're separate questions. I want to ask them separately to see if anybody has questions or issues. Anybody have an issue with funding number 2?
So we're looking at a total of $32,000 for both.
That's how I want to get there once we decide what we want to do. But yeah,
That's what I'm asking.
There you go. Charlie knows where I'm going. So that's 10,000. Do it now. Wait till mid-year. Staff recommendation would be
Now.
now. That's what I figured. Okay. So that's 10,000 now for the crew leader. Anybody have an issue with this one? Everybody good with this one? Happy with this one? Happy with this one? Okay. Number 3, please. Number 3 is the PD. That's a little different deal.
I know, yeah, that's what I was thinking.
That's a different deal. That's the, I guess so those 2, 1 and 2, I think are pretty clear. That's 10,000 plus whatever the number was, 21,000. 32,000 total. Great. Let's do that. Thumbs up.
Okay.
Number 3, I think we don't have do we have a full dollar amount for this one? Oh,
I think it's, with the benefits, it's going to be $48,000.
that's your 48,000. Okay. Yes, sir.
That's to get 13 employees to their correct step.
13 points. Okay. Thank you, Chief.
We're at 32.
You said 44. Right, Chief? 44? 48, I'm sorry. 48.
48 and 32.
Yep.
That's 80.
Is there a recommendation from staff to do that now or wait till mid-year? And staff being police department?
Yes, I would recommend it, yes, sir.
Now? That's what I thought. Okay. That's fair. I want to understand. And that includes dispatchers as well, so this may help our dispatcher recruitment, hopefully, fingers crossed?
It includes 1.
1 dispatcher, okay. And supervisors as well, right? Supervisors on your list?
She's in the correct step.
Yeah.
So, when we're talking about our dispatch supervisor, that's a whole unique situation in and of itself. Her pay scale where she's at is not even recognized by other departments as far, she's so far behind. The starting salary for dispatch supervisor in our city, or the top out in our city, is really less than what the beginning pay is at any of our competitors on the average. So she's in a pretty unique position. If we give the one dispatcher his pay increase, he'll actually be making more than what his supervisor is. So
we want to address the supervisor as well. That's what it sounds like. I think we have to address supervisor. If we address dispatcher, we have to address supervisor. So, and is that included in the 48,000? Okay. How much would that be? Just this dispatch supervisor?
We have to research that.
Okay. Get back to this, please. Can y'all get back to this next meeting?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Because I think I know what you're talking about. That it is a unique situation. It's a long tenured employee, if I'm thinking correctly. So that's why. Yeah. I do not want to lose these folks. As I was thinking today about the police, we've had all these vacancies, and so we're filling them slowly by new hires. Basically, as the chief said, kids they were putting through the academy. So that's great and all, but I don't want to have a full staff full of kids. I want to keep our existing experienced employees. That just sort of made just a light bulb popped in my head today. We're getting these new employees. Great. You've got to have somebody that are showing the ropes. You've got to have some people that are experienced, the 3 to 5 year folks who really are concentrating or talking about. I think that's an important piece here that we haven't really discussed. We've discussed how can we fill these open vacancies, how can we do that? Okay, great, we're filling the vacancies, but we need experienced folks above them to show them the ropes, to keep them in line, to make sure they do it right, do it the Saginaw way. So that's important to keep those folks in competitive positions financially. So that's one way I thought about this today that I hadn't before. All right, so any concerns, questions on our 3 proposals? So one is 1750 crew adjustment, and then the PD, the 48,000 PD, plus potentially a dispatch supervisor, which we'll have to get more information on. So is anybody opposed to funding that fully next meeting, which would be Feb whatever, first meeting in February? I assume we can have everything ready by then? Okay.
Yes.
Excellent. Anybody have any issues with that? Okay. I think that's pretty clear direction for staff moving forward. Again, more information. The bigger picture, and I think as Nikki was alluding to, is long term going forward. This is stop the bleeding, stick your finger in the dike kind of thing to hold up short term. But then long term, we've got some more discussions to have. So I think that will warrant more discussions in the future. But keep in mind that yes, this is coming. We have to think about it and put it together. I mean, we did take a step last year. We raised all employees last year 5%. It's a good start. But we need to look at what we need to do this year going forward to continue to try to gain, at least keep pace with the marketplace. Because that's what we're fighting. We're fighting the market, not any specific city, but the market. Because as you mentioned, folks that work for us can work in 20 different cities without driving too much further, and that's the difficulty being in the metroplex. But it's also the benefit because people want to live here. So. Anything else on this subject? We've talked a lot about it. I think it's the first of many discussions to come. We've got a lot more. Yes, Melanie.
What about the people that can we review the ones that would trickle down to and look and see what that would cost to adjust those?
Sure, bring that to us. Bring that to us. Let's talk about it.
Okay.
So this is step one. I said let's talk about what the impact, because step one will have an impact, what that impact be and what that we might need to do. So yeah, let's discuss that.
Okay.
Next meeting or sometime in February. How about that?
Thank you.
Is that fair? Everybody cool? Is that good? That makes sense, everybody? Everybody good? Okay. This
I think Kim's got a look on her face.
Can I just
Yes,
just
ma'am.
want to make sure, I agree, all of this is definitely needed, but I just want y'all to remember this. This is just a partial year funding. So we're going to have to fund the full year of these increases when it comes to next fiscal year.
In October,
So
yeah.
that's right. So you're going to have a full year funding. We can't absorb this within our current budget. So we're fixing to issue more debt, and that's going to affect the tax rate, and these salaries are going to affect the tax rate. So I just want y'all to remember that when we're reviewing this in the summer and we show you a tax rate increase, this is how you're going to pay for these increases. So I just feel like as the finance director, I'm in the same position. My department, my positions are way under market too, and the only reason I've been able to fill my recent vacancies is because I happen to have people that live close that don't want to commute. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to hire in the current level that they're at. So I just want to remind you, and we'll bring it up again over the summer, that there's funding ramifications to these decisions.
The bill comes due. We understand. Absolutely.
That's why I was mentioning maybe, I thought I mentioned having a working session where we go through that and we look at the numbers and we have to make the uncomfortable decisions. It comes out, there's only so many knobs we can turn. We either raise taxes, we cut services, we got to do something. We just write those knobs down and you start until we get to the level in which, is right for the citizens. But
All right, thank you, folks. Good discussion. More to come on this.
Move forward. Item number 15 at 8:19. We are in executive session pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.071 and 551.087. We will return to adjourn.
Oh, we're in an executive session.
Why was the Boy Scout here? Was he just observing, or were we supposed to?
We always have one here.
I know, but were we supposed to acknowledge him or anything?
We always have a guy here. Normally the chiefs, both chiefs are here, so we only have one officer here just for security, for whatever, to keep you safe.
I was just worried about the Boy Scout. I didn't know if he was sitting here.
No, I asked him if he wanted to do the pledge, and he said no.
Why?
I asked him, like, when we should fix, and then where for some communication.